there with it. 5 seconds. 4, 3. DeBryan comes up with it for Pella Christian. Throws a baseball shot onto the other end, and that'll be it. Final score 75-37. Pella Christian got the points piled up in that quarter. Scored 24 points to 14 for Pella in the fourth quarter, but this ball game really never in doubt much beyond the end of the first quarter. It was 19-10 at the end of the first quarter. Out to a 9-point lead. Either way, but they quickly stretched it into 26-10 advantage, and the game really was in hand at that point for the Eagles. Pella Christian ranked 4th in the state on the Des Moines Register poll. Will go to 1-0 as they open up what promises to be a very interesting season for Pella Christian, hopefully a very successful season for the Eagles. And don't forget, Tuesday night they take on Washington. We'll talk about that ball game a little bit more as we have Jerry Nikkel come up to visit with us a little bit later on. Well, Gord, this ball game did turn out as it was supposed to on paper.
No, that's exactly right. And I'll tell you, Paul, when you start practice on November 13th, and you're going to start with all new kids, and here it is the 1st of December, so, you know, what do you got in? Maybe 14 practices, 15 practices. There's no way that you can go with the team that George Lance had last year, a state tournament team that finishes a state runner-up, and then put a ball club on the floor that's going to compare with experience. Pella Christian beat Pella last year in the first game of the year, and then they played each other in the district tournament when Pella was really on a roll and just playing excellent basketball with experienced kids, using mainly seniors, and then you come back the next year. It almost seems like you kind of pay the price for having played that many seniors. And in a sense, Pella Christian has the same situation. You don't do anything about it. You know, I mean, you look where the talent is in particular classes. This year, Pella Christian is in that particular position. True, there's Eric Pothoven, who's a sophomore, but basically, the kids who are going to play ball all year long are senior kids, and then next year, you have to rebuild. And there's just not enough time from November 13 until December 1 in your first ball game to be able to put everything together. It's difficult because you work on fundamentals. You work on fundamentals over and over again. You probably don't scrimmage as much as what the kids would like. And it's difficult to put it all together in a short amount of time. And that's basically how the game went. I mean, it was experience versus inexperience. And when it comes to guys, generally, experience is what pays off.
Put yourself, if you will, Gord, in George Ware's shoes for just a minute. What are the positives that he draws out of this game tonight?
Well, I think, for one, you draw on the fact that you've got kids with good character, and they aren't going to give up. You know, you play a game like this in other places, and I've seen kids put their heads down. You know, when it gets to be 26-10 and you're facing an experienced ball club, I mean, you got to be a little bit realistic and say that, you know, they're not going to come back. Yeah, you got to work at what's the next game and what's the next one and so forth. And I think that's what he's got to dwell on. Look, kids, you worked hard. We've worked hard since November 13. We've got to keep doing that. You know, good things will happen to people who work hard. And he's got some young kids, the Pothoven kid, the point guard's going to be a good ball player. Balcher's going to be a good ball player. There were other kids in their freshman class last year that I felt were good ball players. And you just got to keep working at it. I think he's got to tell his kids, and I'm sure he is, because he's a veteran coach, is, look, kids, we forget about this one. Look what we did to them, you know, last year. That's what you got to work on and think about a little bit. And let's think about the tradition we established, and we'll get it done. You know, we'll get it turned around. Sure, it's a you know, a big loss for the kids because with it being an inner-city rivalry, they're reminded all the time. They see those kids. So Kevin Pothoven sees Eric Pothoven next Sunday, and you know, there again the thought comes back. Yeah, you just killed us Friday night. But you got to forget. You got to build. You always got to look ahead. That's the case with anything.
Kevin's probably going to see a lot more of Eric than he cares to in the next few weeks, I suppose.
That's probably right.
We're going to take a break. We're expecting visits from both George Wares and Jerry Nichols a few minutes down the road. We'll bring it right back to Kuiper Gymnasium in a moment. Tonight's game is brought to you. Doubleheader between Pella and Pella Christian tonight. Pella Christian boys winning in the nightcap, 75-37. I had it down 37. They had 38 up on the board, I noticed, just as they turned it off. So unless we had a three-pointer sneak by us there at the end, we will double check on that. Sort of a moot point, I guess. In the girls' contest tonight, Pella defeated Pella Christian 49-47. So I guess, Gord, the good side is that everybody goes away with something to smile about.
And I guess that happens every year. It just seems to me that's the way it is. Not very often I can remember has either one of the two clubs swept the other. And it seems like if our girls were expected to win, Pella High was the underdog, they'd come through and win. The boys' situation's been like that once in a while. So it's an interesting ball game. It really is. And no matter what the talent, you can say, well, we're down this year, and boy, we already got kicked around a lot. But it all evens out. You have cycles where you end up with really fine athletes, and you have cycles where you have average athletes and sometimes even below average, and you wonder how in the world you're ever going to come out of this because everything's so mediocre. But, right now, Pella Christian has fine ball players in each position. They got good guards, they got good big people, wing people play well, and, boy, when you get that combination, you're going to have a fine season. Pella Christian is going to have a really, really fine year.
From the Jerry Nikkel point of view, of course, we can ask him ourselves when he gets up here in a few minutes, but when you double the score on an opponent, obviously you've had a good basketball game. As a fellow coach of high school basketball at the freshman level, did you see anything in the Pella Christian game that would be cause for concern? Perhaps when they would get out of their game from time to time. That's what stood out in my mind the most is a negative, quote-unquote, if you will, from this lopsided victory.
And I guess I wouldn't be so concerned about that if I were a coach because of what the score is. I think that comes because of a lack of concentration. If it's a tight ball game where every play means something, then I think that, and you are making mistakes at crucial areas in a tight ball game, that's a cause for concern. But that's difficult to make a judgment on in a game like this. But, I guess I see more positives. It's difficult to see a negative in the way Pella Christian played. I've always been impressed with Martin Gorf. Every time he's on the floor, he seems to get a little better. Woody Klein didn't have a game that would be up to his standards tonight, but he didn't get the shots. Brent Eating got the shots, and Brent put the ball in the hole. So, Brent's in double figures, far beyond double figures. I think it was a in the first half, so he might have had 15 or 17 points. Young sophomore, Jerry Cothoven had around 19. So, I think it's a good start. I'm sure Jerry Nikkel's looking forward to Tuesday night just to see how they'll match up with Washington. I'm sure that's probably already on his mind, and he'll probably talk about that even more than what he will this particular game now that this one's passed.
Bright spot on the Pella side of things tonight would be the play of Mike Balster, the sophomore, with 8 points in the ball game. As he played the fine game, made some mistakes, some young player mistakes, 3 traveling calls, I believe, on little shuffle steps as he went to make his offensive move, but by and large played a fine basketball game, especially as a sophomore. Well, Jerry Nikkel is stepping in. Congratulations, Coach, on an impressive victory, 75-37. What was the final score exactly? We had 75-37 up here, and notice they had 38 up on the board just before they shut it off.
Yeah, it was 75-37, though.
70. I knew I couldn't be wrong. Well, Jerry, game went according to form of what was on paper anyway. You coming back with a lot of veteran talent, and Pella with a lot of young players. Any surprises on either side of the ball for you?
Well, I felt that a couple of our veterans did not have real good ball games. I don't want to say I'm disappointed in their play, but I feel that they had very mediocre games for them. I thought that both Ryan Fine and Mark Van Gorp got off to kind of slow starts, and Balser did a great job for them, for a young sophomore kid inside, had a couple big blocks of shots on each one of those fellas in the first half. So I guess I was a little surprised that Balser played as well as he did as a sophomore for them in the starting role, and I didn't think that probably Klein and Van Gorp probably played up quite as far. But, they're the co-captains, and they're wanting to get this season going, and they probably felt a little more pressure being the old men on the floor. So The other kids, though, I really was pleased with the way they picked up the slack, and I just thought Brent Giddings did a super job on the boards early in the ball game, and in fact, all night long, he was a tough man inside, and I thought Brad Wingate came off the bench and really gave us a lift action-wise. I mean, he does a lot of things on the court, so it was good for me to see that, because now I know, I thought we were 6, 7, 8 deep out there, and I feel that we are.
When you look at the flip side of that, if you try to turn the so-so game by the veterans into a positive, you saw these other players step forward and have great games. Brent Giddings, so you look down the road in the season when Van Gorp and Klein are having their good games, and if Giddings continues to, and also Pothoven out front, well, then you've got a loaded team that an opposing defense really can't concentrate on.
Well, that's really, Paul, the way we feel about our team. We feel that we have 5 guns out there, and I think, as I told you earlier in the week, that I feel that on any given night, any one of the 5 can go out and score in double figures for us, and I'm not so sure that we can't even bring the 6th man in and let him do that. So that really helps us, to have that kind of depth and to be able to do that. And it was good for us to, get into that tonight already. I thought that Troy Vandermolen really sparked us on defense. I thought he was the one that got our defensive pressure cranked up in the first half. He picked up 3 fouls in the first half, but I thought he was the one that give us the lift that made the other kids play harder, and you got to have that. I thought from the point of view of team-wise, it was a great team effort, because Wingate could come in and pick up Klein with no problem at all. And I was very pleased with Pothoven's play out front. It was the first time he's ever started a varsity game, and he plays very well.
Let's look ahead to Tuesday night. A big one, Washington coming in. They did grab that #1 ranking in the Des Moines Register preseason poll, so Washington obviously expected to do great things this season. They have a lot of talent coming back from a good team, a state tournament team last year. Give us a little preview into that ball game Tuesday night out here at Central.
Well, Washington's a great team. When you got 3 starters back who were your 3 leading scorers a year ago, you can have 3 starters back that didn't figure in those roles. They got the 3 top scorers back, and the top rebounder in Brown, who is definitely an all-state player. They're good shooters. They are very good shooters. They're a patient ball club. They work for the good things, and then they put the ball in the basket. So we again, I think, probably have to try to up-tempo the game. We have to use our height advantage, which we will have again inside. We have to try to utilize that. I really don't feel Washington puts quite as much pressure defensively on as what Pella did here tonight. Pella always puts good pressure on. George does a good job with the defensive end of things, and I think that's their motto. I noticed on their jackets, defense wins championships, and I think that's pretty much what they're living with. And with a young team, they'll definitely come around before the season gets too much longer, too. They've got a good nucleus to build on, and I think he's doing the right thing.
Congratulations, Jerry, on a fine victory, and good luck Tuesday night against Washington. We'll be there for that one.
Well, thank you very much, Paul. We appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Coach. Pella Christian head basketball coach Jerry Nikkel as the Eagles 75-37 over Pella High School, and we'll have George Wares join us in just a couple moments. Tomorrow morning on the Coach's Corner program, we will be talking with both of our boys' coaches, along with also coaches from Knoxville. 1 hour Coach's Corner starting tomorrow morning from 10 to 11. And George Wares and Jerry Nikkel will join us tomorrow morning to talk more about tonight's ball game and also look ahead at the high school basketball season for Pella and Pella Christian. George Wares, Pella basketball coach, coming out of a game like this as the coach on the short end of a lopsided score, it might be hard for somebody on the outside to find positives, but I think there were a lot of positives out there for Pella.
Well, we knew going in that Pella Christian had a great basketball team, and we were concerned, quite frankly, about being able to play with them. And we saw some positives. I thought early we played some decent defense. We got killed on the boards a little bit. We worked hard on screening out and did a respectable job, but not enough, especially the Giddings kid in the first half had a lot of offensive boards against us. And I thought from an individual standpoint, Mike Valster played very well for a sophomore. So we saw some positive things. We knew it was going to be difficult. They have a great team, and they stuck it to us.
When you look at the ball game, what do you draw from it to work as a positive down the road? What do you draw from this game when you get back into the gym on Monday or Saturday, whenever have you practice next. What do you draw from this game? What do you tell the guys to turn it into a positive?
Well, I think it gives us kind of a barometer of where we are now, because we played one of the better teams in the state of Iowa and got beat decisively, but it kind of tells us exactly where we are and some things we have to work on, like obviously our offense. We spent the first 3 weeks of practice trying to get the kids to understand some things defensively. We worked hard on the rebounding part of the game, and we haven't spent a lot of time offensively, and that looks like it, obviously. Now, part of that was a tribute to the fine athletes that Pella Christian has, but we're going to have to spend a lot of time with our transition game, our half-court offense, and get the kids believing a little bit more in that and getting them to be more aggressive to the basket. Obviously, we were very tentative, and you expect that with some young kids. But now, I guess, playing a team that good, we know this is where we're at and some things we have to improve on. And it's kind of like last year when we got beat pretty decisively. If you play somebody that's not that good, you might kind of get a false sense of confidence, and we obviously don't have that. They really showed some of the things that we don't do very well, and hopefully when we look at the film more, some more of those things will come out, and the kids will see it, as opposed to us just telling them, and when it's easier for us to tell them in practice to work on it.
Looking down the road, got a big game next Friday night, a week from tonight, against the team that is being picked as the South Central Conference favorite going into Knoxville. Can you make enough progress in the next week to play with Knoxville?
Oh, we hope so. We don't have a whole lot of choice in the matter, but Knoxville will be a very good basketball team. They're always very well coached by Dale. And with the returning kids they have, they're going to present us with a lot of problems, and I think they're a legitimate pick to win the conference. It's kind of funny, though. It seems like a lot of times, regardless of the differential in experience or talent, that turns into be a pretty good basketball game. So maybe just the rivalry factor in the conference opener will get our kids pumped up enough that we'll have a pretty good effort next week. And obviously after that, we've got Newton and Indianola. So we tell our kids right now that we probably play the toughest schedule of any 2A in the state, and somehow we've got to survive that. We've got to make sure the kids keep believing in themselves, and regardless of the outcome and from a sports situation, we keep playing because it's a long season, and 4 months is a lot of time to try to get better before tournament starts.
Thanks for stopping up, George, and congratulations on a good effort tonight against Pella Christian. Pella basketball coach George Wares. That's going to wrap things up for tonight from Central College. Thanks for joining us on KRLS, the new 92 FM for high school basketball action, Pella versus Pella Christian. Final scores once again in girls action. Pella defeated Pella Christian 49-47 in the boys contest. It was Pella Christian 75 and Pella 37. Our next broadcast will be Tuesday night as Pella Christian takes on Washington in boys basketball. We'll be on the air at 7:45. Our next Pella broadcast next Friday night, boys action, as Pella squares off with Knoxville. Thanks for joining us tonight, and we hope that your team was victorious tonight. I guess you can't go wrong with Pella winning the girls game and Pella Christian winning the boys game. That's going to wrap things up tonight for KRLS Sports. I'm Paul Clark. Have a very pleasant Friday evening.